Okay, hi there. For this Illustrator step-by-step, I'm going to have fun with a coffee bean logo. I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to grab from my toolbar, click and select the ellipse tool. I'm going to drag out a bean-like shape, right, and let go. So I've got this image on the screen. It's got a path around it that is an ellipse. It has a fill color of black. If I do want to update to a new CMYK fill, I can double click on the swatch in the toolbar, or I can go to the color area or the swatches panel, or if I double click on the swatch, it will bring up the color picker. So now I can zoom in down here and move into an appropriate fill and say okay, and now my object is filled with the color that I want. And if I do want to update that color, here's my color picker or my color area, and I can use the ramp and update because it is still selected. So now I want to draw the line in between the upper portion and the lower portion of the coffee bean. So I'm going to use my, let's see, maybe I'll use my pencil tool. So I'm going to draw kind of a curved line, and we'll see if this works. It may work, it might not work adequately for this coffee bean. What I'm doing is creating a path that I'm going to use to cut this bean in half. So we'll try that to start with. So I've created this path, and I'm going to use object, path, divide objects below, right here. So that splits the object up, and I can click and you can see that there is that split between the two objects. And you can see that it works okay. Maybe it's not exactly like the coffee bean shape. So I'm going to try again. I'm going to zoom over. I'm going to make a coffee bean type of a shape. And this time I'm going to maybe use the direct selection tool. And I'm going to maybe do something where I make it into a shape that maybe is a little more bean-like. Let's test this out. I'm going to use my convert anchor point tool. Let's see. And I'm going to pull this up a little bit. Pull this guy up a little bit, make it more kind of maybe not as symmetrical as we had it. Well, maybe a little like that. Okay. So now I've got this non-symmetrical shape, and I'm going to go in. I'm going to see, okay, maybe more of a line like this is going to look more like a bean shape. This time I'm going to fill that that shape with a darker fill and see how that guy works. Okay, that looks a little bit more bean-like. That looks a little bit more bean-like, a little bit more like a coffee bean than this one, than this split shape. So I might delete that one. So I've got this little bean shape. And let's see, what else can I do to this thing? So maybe for this bean, maybe I want to create a bit of a gradient fill. So instead of having a flat color on the actual larger shape, that, kind of cylinder, that bean in the background, maybe I want a gradient. So I'm going to pull off the gradient panel and just go, okay, so the bean is selected, the gradient panel is pulled off. I want this brown in the gradient itself, and I want the gradient to be applied to that background shape. So here we have the process of getting that brown into the gradient and also onto the object. And you can see that the gradient that has been applied goes from brown to black. So it's not really appropriate yet. Let's see, what else can we do? So maybe we want the black. We want this brown on the other side. Maybe we don't want a linear. Maybe we do want a linear, but maybe we want this to be rotated at 90 degrees. I wonder, does that look okay? Maybe this one should be a little lighter. Maybe this should be maybe that color. Pull out that one. I'm pressing Option and I'm pulling out a copy, and I'm going to make this one a little lighter. Let's see if that works. And then this one, double click. This one, make this one a little darker at the top. Make this a little darker at the bottom. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Take a look at my bean. A little closer to bean-like. Maybe if I get my kind of references correct, maybe this needs to kind of crack from one side to another. So now we're getting a little more beany, a little more bean-like. Oh, that looks a little more bean-like. Let's like rotate this guy around. So we've got kind of bean-ish like. A little bit of a coffee bean kind of a flavor here. It might need a little texture on it to make it read a little more accurately like a bean. And I'm going to, in the next video, I'll grab a texture and create this object or give it a little more texture. Let's see, what else can I do? So, let's see. A little darker. The coffee bean. So now I'm going to grab another ellipse. And you can see I've created the ellipse, and of course, because I've created it and I brought it to the top, it's going to be not allowing me to see the object below. So with that object selected, Object, Arrange, Send to Back. So now I've got the coffee bean on kind of an ellipse. Let's see how that works. Works okay. I'm going to use that ellipse to attach text to. So my type area tool, or my type tool, when I go near that object, you can see the regular type tool, it's trying to change into type inside of an object. If I want to type on a path, it's actually better if you choose that tool and click right on the object, and you can see that the fill disappears. Because the Type on a Path tool was used and I clicked near the path, the color has disappeared, but the text tool has stuck itself onto or attached itself to the ellipse. Now the text by default is Myriad Pro. If we want to select a new or an updated typeface, let's say something more, kind of fun, maybe we'll select Poplar Standard Black, and I'm going to make this type a little large so that you can see it. So I'm going to say maybe this coffee house is called Coffee Beanery Artisanal coffee truck. So I have my text. It's wrapping around the object, and you can see that it's not exactly centered. So if I stick my cursor into the space right before the first letter and I start pressing the space bar, you can see that the text is rotating around the coffee bean. Delete will bring it back one point. There. If I need to add another E, I'm going to add another E. If I need to add a space, I can add a space in between each of these letters or each of these words. If I need to zoom back and delete, if I need to select and create a capital C, or if I want lowercase c, lowercase b, lowercase a, lowercase c, lowercase t, Coffee Beanery Artisanal Coffee Truck. There we are. So we have our text in place. We can, if we want to, edit the path that the text is on. So you can see that I'm editing the path that the text is on. So I'm changing the nature of the object that the type is following, so I can more accurately have that text wrapping around the bean. If I want to make that bean look like it is a funny little truck, I'm going to press Shift while I make the circle, and I can, and that's to make a perfect circle, press Option, pull out another circle, maybe press select both by pressing Shift and selecting both. Maybe I want to go to Object, Path, Offset Path to make a circle that's smaller. So the offset path, if I want to have little circles inside of the circles to make them look more wheel-like, I'm going to create an offset path. Let's see, this one is going to be a little bit larger. You can see that it's making another shape that's a little bit larger. If I want to make it a little bit smaller, I'm going to press minus so you can see that there's now a circle inside. So I say okay, and I'm just going to recolor this one to another color so you can see what I've actually made. So I made the larger circles and then selected them both and made the smaller circles by using offset path. So that's Object, Path, Offset Path, minus, press Preview, and you can see I've made another circle, and I'm just going to recolor it so you can see what that looks like. So all in the service of making shapes, adding color to them, adding swatches, updating the swatches. So let's see, maybe I want to update that kind of pink swatch and make it into something that's a little bit more appropriate for the little bean artisanal coffee truck. So in this way, all I'm doing is creating a shape, and I didn't even cut this one up. I have another darker shape on top, so it looks as though it's been cut in half, but it's not really cut in half. I've got the little circles for the wheels. I've got the text wrapping around the top of the truck, and I think it's pretty good. It needs a little refining. It needs a little bit of maybe going to rethink the name of this coffee truck and maybe bring in a texture, but I'm going to do that next. So I'm going to stop the video for now and make another one.